That's ominous. Right, well, thank you for turning up. This is about the third or fourth one that I've done. And the idea is it's not meant to educate you in all the different ways of doing things. It's meant to give you an oversight and for you made to think that, you know, going to somebody who's got experience in these sort of things will be a useful benefit, just to give it even a once over, or even maybe to help you write the grant to what you're trying to achieve with this digital connectivity. There's quite a lot in the actual program. There's quite a lot to go through. If I just whiz through to there. So that was the original one I wrote, which had an awful lot in it. I'm going to be whizzing through some of those, but I'm going to be pulling out the most important bits. From our experience with working with charities, I mean, about 55% of MICT's customers are third sector. And doing this sort of processing and these sort of projects, yeah, we've seen some very interesting situations, and we've had to sort of backtrack and see people even can return items because they've gone down the wrong way of purchasing the wrong equipment or the wrong software and things, or they've been given advice which may not be the best advice they can have for doing this sort of installation. So the first thing is, what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to, as far as this is concerned, be able to have a suite of desktops or laptops which the public can use, in effect. That means they've got to have good broadband, they've got to be stable and have good connectivity, which can be physical cabling, or it could be through Wi-Fi. They need to have a system that is just going to work for them, but also protect their data. Simply having a PC or a laptop and you log in on it won't protect their data. If they accidentally go and open up their webmail, or they go to their bank, as you might have well known in certain browsers, they save all your passwords, they save all your information that you type in. And unfortunately, the person using the PC next will be able to see it if it's the same sort of login, or you haven't taken precautions to make sure in some way, between each time a person using it, the PC can reset itself and forget that information. So we also have things like duty of care and so on. Now, what we're looking at is a responsible solution, something which, you know, is low overhead on you guys, is secure for the public to use. You've got to think about noise disruption, you've got to think about mains. I went to one recently and they were setting up 10 PCs with one socket on the wall. And they were hoping just to run a 4-gang into a 4-gang into a 4-gang, and health and safety would have had a nightmare. So that held the project up while we had to get an electrician in to put another mini ring main in to give it proper powering. So there's a lot of things to think about. The easiest way to do, as I said, is get somebody who knows what they're doing, to look at facilities, to look at what you're trying to do. A lot of the ones we're doing these days are also mobile. Well, they'll go from building to building or centre to centre and want to have a mobile sort of broadband connection for the laptops. Again, you've got to be very careful about what the area coverage, who is the best for mobile provider for that coverage. There's a lot of things to take into account. So if we start looking into it, there are a couple of things. First of all, you're going to have to shop around 3 quotes. You're going to have to make sure that they've got the legit licenses for them. A lot of people, for example, if you buy MS Office, which is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, which are what most people want to use on a PC, there's lots of shops out there which will sell it for £12 or £15. And then when you finally get to try and install it, it comes back and says, this isn't legal. So again, make sure when you're buying your software licenses from, it is a reputable dealer. Don't be tempted just to buy things off the internet. Other things which we can't do is ongoing support. So that's why it's very important that you get a system that will work, has minimum support, because if it goes wrong, you can't get that extra support funded as an ongoing solution. Some of the don'ts you definitely don't do is look for deals. When you apply for your grant, it might be a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks before you know if you have the actual, you've been accepted, and then a few more weeks to know if you've actually had your money in the bank. And by then, the deals run out, and you end up having to pay full whack, and it becomes a problem. So stay away from deals. Also stay away from, and it sounds awful, some of the main street vendors, Amazon, Currys. If you're going to use Currys, there's no problems with that. Just make sure you use Currys Business, not the Currys main website. So if you want to buy things through Currys, type in Currys Business. It's a different website. It's got different prices on it. It's got different hardware on it. And it's built for a business solution, not a home solution, which your system cannot be a home solution. It won't be reliable enough. Okay, let's look at the first thing. You're going to look at your broadband. What sort of broadband you're going to have? Now, at the moment, you might well have broadband on your site, and you might have 2 or 3 staff members, which means the critical part of broadband is what's called the download speed. You're downloading things from the internet. An average speed of 10 to 15 is good enough for 2 to 3 devices, and then it goes up to 20 to 35, 5 to 8 devices. But if you suddenly had, say, 8 staff members and your broadband was only 35, and you said, I want to go and buy 6 laptops, what you'll find is your staff will slow down if those laptops by the public are in use. So it's very important that you make sure you get the right broadband, or you have provision in place to do what's called quality of service. I'll come on to that a bit later on. That's when you can dictate that the staff will have the lion's share of the broadband, and when they're not using it, the public can have it. You've also got to look at make sure you do speed tests. The one we use is speed test space fast. If you Google that, that will give you a good idea. And don't just do it once, do it a couple of times during the day. So do one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening to get an overall average of the speed you're getting. You can also use broadband comparison sites. You might have had your broadband for a couple of years. My recommendation is every 12 months, you should review your broadband. It's constantly changing, it's constantly being upgraded. The problem is they won't tell you. So use something like Uswitch or one of the broadband comparison sites and just see what is out there. One of the best deals to go for if you can get it is Virgin. Because this is standard broadband surfing, they're looking for information, they're not playing video games and things like that. Virgin is actually one of the best deals you can get at the price you're paying for it. So broadband, check it out, see what you have, see if you can improve it, and see if you can get Virgin if possible. Oops, next slide. Right, protection and infrastructure. You have a duty of care that people can't serve certain places on the internet. They can't go to adult sites, they can't go to gambling sites, that they will misuse it, they can't do cyberbullying and things like that. So there are certain things which you will need to put in place. One is what's called a web content filter. This is something that sits between your network and the broadband, and it will review what you're trying to look at, and if it deems it of a particular type of website, it will block it or it will allow it through. So you need to make sure you've got a web content filter in. You make sure that your Wi-Fi is also going to be adequate cover. Now, whenever you buy broadband, you normally get a free BT hub or a Virgin hub or whatever, and that will give you Wi-Fi to a degree, but 90% of the times, it doesn't even cover a small house, never mind a church hall with 2-foot thick walls. So it's very important that you do get your Wi-Fi sorted. One of the critical things is never use a thing called a Wi-Fi extender. They don't work. These are devices which you can plug around your house or plug around your building, and they take a very weak Wi-Fi signal and they try and boost it to make it stronger. They just don't work. I don't even know why they're still selling them. Everyone in the IT industry, as soon as we see them, the first thing we do is rip them out. When it comes to Wi-Fi, the buzzword is what's called the unified system. Now, a unified system is an intelligent system And if you were to move a laptop around your building, it would keep track of it, making sure it's always giving it the best possible Wi-Fi signal to connect to your broadband. So the key things on here is you do have a duty of care, you must get a web content filter. You also must get, if possible, a unified Wi-Fi solution if you need to cover large areas. Quickly go through again. Laptops. Okay, this is where it gets a bit technical, so if you glaze over, don't worry too much. But a couple of key things. One is Chromebooks. Don't use them. They may look nice, they may be a very cheap price, but most people will want to use a word processor, they'll want to use an Excel spreadsheet, they'll want to go to websites and the doctor's appointments and the government websites and things like that. And Chromebooks, you will have problems with them. First of all, they don't run Office. And that's sort of the key thing which you want people to be able to have access to write CVs and to write information. So please do not look down the Chromebook rate. Always check to make sure it's running Windows operating system, not a Chromebook operating system. The other thing to be careful about is if you go for a brand new laptop, then you should have no problems on that. But they are expensive. We would normally, in these environments, suggest that you go for a grade A reconditioned or refurbished laptop. Because it's a better value, they're normally about £150 cheaper than buying a new laptop. So if you were buying 6 of them, you could almost buy a 7th in the price of saving. So it's very tempting to go and look for the refurbished side. Now, there's a difference between refurbished and renewed. Refurbished is someone who's got a laptop in, given it a once over and said, yes, that looks good, it's okay, it's running, there's no problems with it. But if it's renewed, it will normally come with scratches, dings, dints. It will look worn and slightly old. A renewed laptop, a grade A renewed laptop, is where it's effectively been resprayed, it's been reskinned, the keyboard's been repainted, so effectively it will look almost brand new, although it might be slightly old, it might be 1 or 2 years old. So if you can, always look for renewed laptops, not refurbished, because they are truly second-hand. So once you've decided whether you're going to buy new or you're going to buy renewed, the next thing, which is a bit technical, is to look at what's called the processor generation. Now, whenever you see an article, whenever you see an advert through Amazon or Currys or anywhere, they will say this is an Intel or an AMD. Both of those processors are very good processors. I'm just going to concentrate on the Intel at the moment. The Intel has 3 ranges. It has i3, i5, and i7. So they're the 3 different types of processor ranges. i3 is home, i5 is business, i7 is graphics work. So if you're just going to use this at home, an i3 will be perfectly adequate. If you're using it in business, or in this case, the digital public side, you want to go for an i5. If you decide that you want the public, for whatever reason, to use graphics software like Adobe and things, you are looking at an i7. If in the event you ever want to look at a gaming PC, you're looking at what's called the i9, which is the latest generation, with the latest range. Now, within each range, there is a generation. Now, if you look down in the middle paragraph, we have an i5 1267. Now, the 12 means it's a 12th generation. That means it's a very good processor. The one below that, although the processor is better, it's a 6200, which means the 6 means it's a 6th generation, which is an older processor. Now, that won't run Windows 11. To give you an idea, each generation is twice as fast as the generation before it. So if I was going to buy an Intel i5 13th generation, that will be twice as fast as the 12th generation. You don't want to go below 8th. 8th is the critical bit, because you need to be running Windows 11. And Windows 11 will not run on anything lower than an 8th generation. Normally these days, I mean, this is actually 2 years old, this slide, we would be saying you're looking at 9th or a 10th generation. So again, you can get some amazing deals on Currys and Amazon especially, and things like that, where you can buy renewed PCs. But the reason they are so cheap is because they run Windows 10, not Windows 11. And the reason why you have to be running Windows 11 is because Windows 10 is end of life next October. So if you want any longevity with these PCs, they must come with Windows 11 pre-installed. So at the bottom, I'll put down what you should be looking for really, which is an Intel i5, 8th gen processor, 8 gig minimum. Don't go below that. If you go to 4 gig, it's not enough to run it. You need 8 gig minimum, 16 gig if you can get it. It's even better. You're looking for what's called SSD or NVMe. Now, 90% of all the laptops you will see will have one of those two. Either one is a great one to go for. What you're looking for is what's called HD. HD is hard disk. That's a very, very old technology. It hasn't been used in 5 or 6 years, and it will cripple a good PC because it's so slow and so old. I doubt you'll ever come across it, but there are some people on Amazon who are logging good computers with old HD drives, and they will put it in. You want a minimum for a laptop, for example, of a 14-inch screen. 15.3 is better, but it makes the laptop bigger. So if it's just for within your building, I would go for a 15.3 screen size. If you're going to be mobile and you're taking it out and about, I will be using a 14-inch screen. I would also, just one recommendation personal, buy an external mouse. I don't know if you've ever used laptops, but you get that little tablet thing where you can move your mouse pad around and they break very easily, especially with people who are not used to using them or not used to using a laptop, and they can push down quite hard on them. Most laptop breakages we have, besides spillage of water and things, are due to the actual tablet, the mouse tablet breaking. So buy yourself a cheap external mouse. They cost about £4. People are more used to them. They're easy to use. And if they do break, you can just throw it away and buy a new one. So I'd always recommend that if you're going for laptops, definitely buy an external mouse for them. Desktop PCs, a couple of other things to be careful about. I would stay away from what's called all-in-one computers. That's where the computer is part of the screen and it's just one big monitor in effect. Simply because they are very expensive to upgrade or to fix if they go wrong. I'd also be tempted to stay away from touch screens for that exact reason, because again, they are very expensive to replace. And to tell you the truth, most people don't use a touch screen the way it should be. With PCs, you really want to make sure they are network cabled. So there's a physical cable coming out of the back of the PC, plugging into your broadband solution. You can put them on Wi-Fi, but even if your Wi-Fi is good, PCs aren't designed to run on Wi-Fi. So you want to be looking at, have I got a cable run? Are there cable points by where I want these PCs? If not, how much would it cost for someone to go and run cables to where those PCs are? When it comes to size of PCs, I would recommend you go for what's called SFF, small form factor. They're not the micro PCs, they're a standard desktop PC, about the size of 2 shoe boxes, if you can remember those. Don't go for mini tower or full towers, simply because they're too big in a room. Small form factor is around about the right size you should go for. And also look for, when it comes to monitors, make sure it's a 22-inch and it can be adjustable. A lot of the cheaper monitors you can go for are static, which means if someone has a bad back or posture or needs to move the monitor to be able to see it properly, they can't do that. So look for at least a 22 to 24-inch monitor is a good size, and make sure it's adjustable, and stay away from 4K monitors. You just don't need them unless you're playing serious video gaming. So you can save your money by not buying 4K monitors. But again, the specifications are pretty much the same. Intel, i5, 8th gen processor, or 9th or 10 these days. And we're going a bit more through that in a minute. 8 gig, 16 or even 32, depending on what you're doing with it. And again, the SD and the NVMe drives, they're the two types of hard disks you're looking for, not the HDs. I'd stay away from having multiple monitors unless you're going to do some sort of media production with them. So if you are saying, I want people to use the Adobe suite and to do video, or we had one client who wants to do podcasts, then I would strongly suggest you have multiple monitors. It makes life easier if you can be editing your podcast on one screen and reviewing it on another screen. So again, that's something to think about, but it takes more desk space. So you might want a stand, you might want monitor brackets and so on. So what I've done here is, these are all adverts from Amazon, and therefore 5 different types of laptops you could buy, and you can see the relevant prices on them. So if I just quickly whiz through them and tell you the pros and cons of each one. First of all, we've got a Lenovo, which is a good brand make. It's Windows 11. The problem is it's got what's called the S at the end. The S tells me it's the cut down version of Windows. It's the minimum you'll get away with. And the reason behind that is it's got a very, very poor processor, and it's only got 4 gig of memory. Now, if you came to me and say, listen, I've just bought 5 of these, and could you put antivirus on them for me? Could you put Microsoft Office on them for me? I'd be like, no, because by the time I've done that, the PC won't load. It's simply, those 2 packages are too powerful to run on that sort of PC. So A is out simply because of the 4 gig, bad processor, and it's the S version. You're looking for what's called the Pro version. Again, an Asus, a good home make. Windows 10 Home. Again, that's a problem. In less than 12 months, that will be out of date. It will know it will be insecure, even though it has a good processor, an i5, 11th gen with 8 gig of memory and a good SSD drive. It's something I wouldn't touch because it's Windows 10 Home. And so that's basically, you've got 12 months life left in it. We look at C. This is a HP notebook. Again, HP's good brand. It's got 11 Pro, which is nice. It's got an Intel i5 12th gen processor, 16 gig of memory. That's a good price. That's not a bad machine. So at the moment, that is the one I'd be looking at buying, but it's £530. Acer, as soon as I see the word Chromebook, I don't read any further. Don't use a Chromebook. You can't, it's not a good idea. The last one, again, it's a HP, same style, it's a 250. So it's the same laptop, Windows 11 Pro, that's good. Intel, the problem you've got is a 6th gen, which means, now this is something interesting, you'll see this quite often. This is a 6th gen processor running Windows 11 Pro. And the thing that instantly tells me is that copy of Windows 11 Pro is illegal, because Windows 11 Pro cannot run on a 6th gen processor.
What? Sorry?
Let's go to the bus for a French meeting.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, you okay? If you've got any questions, please shout out. If I'm going too fast or too slow, please let me know. But so again, although this, I mean, the picture of this laptop on E and this one on C, they will be exactly the same pictures. This one is an illegal copy, so it might not work. It might not work. It might not load updates, or the antivirus won't run properly. So do be careful. There are a lot of cons, especially on Amazon. So out of all these laptops, the only one which is half decent is the HP 250 G9, which is at £530, which for a laptop is a bit pricey. So to tell you the truth, I wouldn't buy any of those, to be honest. The same can be said for PCs. Now, these are all adverts for exactly the same PC off Amazon. They're all for a HP desktop Elite 800, right? So I pulled these all off Amazon, and they're all exactly the same PC. But if I go through them, this one is the Elite Desk 800, small form factor, nice looking laptop PC. It's an i7, but it's a 2nd gen. So I'm not going to touch it because it won't run Windows 11, it runs Windows 10. This one down here is an i5 7th gen. Again, they're saying it's running Windows 11. That's got to be illegal because it must be 8 or above for it to run it. So I can scrap that one. This one, for £99, is a good deal. It's an i5, but again, it's a 4th gen, even though it has a turbo quad-core processor with 4 gig of memory and the 500 gig HDD hard disk. So again, not worth the money. This one, HP, I mean, they all look identical. They all look exactly the same as they do in the picture. i5, quad-core processor, but it's running Windows 10 at home. So the only one that's actually worth buying is the last one, which is HP Elite Desktop, i5, 8th gen, 16 gig for £450. But again, it's still Windows 10 Pro. It's still going to be outdated in a year's time. So again, with all these ranging from 450 right the way down to £100, you can get better deals. So please be careful. And some of these deals you will see also on Currys and John Lewis and the other IT platforms where you can buy PCs and things. You'll see an awful lot coming up over the next couple of months because people are trying to flog their Windows 10 PCs now before they throw them in the bin in a couple of months' time when Windows 10 becomes redundant and they can't sell them. So do be careful, very careful what you are buying. Tablets seem to be a very popular place. Personal preference, do you go for Apple or Android? Which is better? Personally, I like to stay with the Android versions. Apple is a very, very good brand. It's a very, very nice bit of kit. The problem becomes with if someone breaks it, can you afford to replace it? They normally cost about twice as much as the relevant Android device costs. And there's also a lot more technical setup to an Apple to make sure it's locked down for public use. If it's your own personal device, an Apple is a good buy. But for the public side, I would stay with Android. However, I would stay with leading brands like Samsung, Lenovo. Don't go for unbranded ones you never heard of. They may look sweet, they might have very good specs, but we found on generally the touchscreens are very good. They keep hanging and crashing and you're constantly rebooting it. So if you're going to go for a tablet, my recommendation would be to go for something like a Samsung. You also want to make sure that when you set it up, you have what's called multiple accounts. A lot of people will set up tablets and say, there is the account, hand it over to someone in public, and in some way they mess it up. They forget the passwords, they lock themselves out. Or worst case, they change the password, then you're into what's called factory resetting them. Now with an Android, it's not too bad. With an Apple, it's a terrible thing to go through, having to factory reset an Apple. I would also activate things like Find My Device and use parental control. So what you should do with a tablet is always have 2 accounts. One is the primary account you use to create the thing in the first place, and then create a secondary account as a child account called public. While it's in parental mode, it will give you then a lot of protection. They can't install software on it. They can't look around the settings. It's very easy to do, but it's always useful to have those 2 accounts. Well, sorry, go back. So on tablets, simply make sure that Samsung, 2 accounts, 1 account is in parental mode, and you do have the Find My Device. Unfortunately, because tablets are small, they can go missing easily, and having to find my device is a godsend to get them back on that situation. Right, as I said, there's some certain things on software you've got to be careful about. When it comes to Windows, there are several different versions. As I've mentioned, there's this thing called the S version. That is a stripped down version of Windows. It is the minimum you can get away with, and it's okay for home computers, but I really wouldn't touch that at all. The other two versions are Home and Pro. Home, as I said, is for the home version. Pro is for the professional. If you're buying a laptop or a PC, always go for the Pro version because it gives you more security. It gives you the ability to track things. It gives you the ability to view or logs to be able to review in case you have any issues with people going to the wrong websites and things like that. You can have all that functionality. The home version doesn't. Make sure that when you're putting your funding bid in, you look for a business level antivirus, a mainstream one, not really Norton. I would go for Bitdefender or McAfee and things like that. But again, be careful because they all want you to sign up for the auto renew. So if you put your credit card in and you buy it, what happens is 1 month beforehand it emails you, and if you don't read that email and cancel it there and then, it will auto renew it. And if you unfortunately lost those devices or you no longer work for the company, your credit card will still be have the hit on it. So if you're buying the antivirus, make sure you buy a year license. That's it, without auto renew. Only because it's very hard to track which machine had which copy of the antivirus on. If most of these devices are going to want to have a version of Office installed, you can use Home and Students, or if you wanted to, because your budget's tight, you could use one of the alternative versions of Office like LibreOffice. That's a very good clone of Office. But you want to have a fixed copy of Office installed. What you can't use is Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 is an online, you purchase it either a year's contract or you purchase it monthly. And the 365 is an amazing environment. It works with you, it tracks everything you're doing, it comes up with suggestions with the new AI functionality. It is an amazing product, but the idea is it's for a single person. So on my laptop, I have Microsoft 365, and it's starting to learn how I work and start to reorganize my desktop and things, because it remembers everything I'm doing. But in a public environment, you want it to forget everything, so the next person who uses that device won't see what the previous version is doing. And therefore 365 is not suitable. It will remember. So if someone logs into their email, the next person who uses the computer, it will automatically log them into that previous person's email. So please do not use 365. Make sure you buy Office or you use a free version like the LibreOffice. Now you can get a lot of software through what's called the charity discount software, which I'll talk about in a bit. However, Microsoft trying to pull out of being a charity. The way they've now charged things, and they've made it so complex to get through it, you won't save that much money by using the actual charity software. It's a bad thing Microsoft's doing, but they intend to pull out of the charity donation side altogether, and they're making it either really hard or just not worthwhile doing because you don't save that much money. But I'll talk through it anyway in a bit. So again, you need to find Windows 11 Professional, a business antivirus like Bitdefender, which doesn't have an auto renew, and you really want to have a fixed copy of Office, Home and Students. That is the sort of software environment which will be good for these public access computers. Additional items, okay. A couple of things you might not know. You might decide to buy some headsets so people can have video conferencing or watch videos online privately. I would strongly recommend providing any sort of headsets for health and safety reasons. What you have to do is if you provide headsets, you have to make sure you clean them thoroughly afterwards between people using them, simply because ear infections can be transmitted through the headset between people using them. So either buy earplugs for them, the little earplugs you can buy, they're £1 each, and say just give them to the people or ask people to bring their own headsets. Also, don't be tempted to go for colour printing. It gets very, very expensive with inkjet or colour laser. The prices of colour printing, what the normal problem we find a lot of times is somebody who's not used to using a PC will open up a web browser, go to a website and say, yes, I want to print that information. So they go file print, and rather than just printing the page they're on, they print the entire website by accident. And before you know it, you've got 60 copies of colour pages coming out, costing you a small fortune. You've also got to be careful of webcams on PCs for privacy usage. I would suggest that if you want to let people use video conferencing, do it on a laptop and a tablet where they can be in a private area. If you had a computer suite and they had webcams on them, then it's not really good when the person sitting next door to you can see what you're seeing. So if you want to do that webcam sort of information, use laptops and tablets to do it on. The things you should do is personal headsets or earphones. You can buy them in bulk. When it comes to printing, make sure you have a large capacity black and white laser printer. That is the cheapest form. The laser printers we provide, a replacement toner cartridge costs about £100, but it gives you anywhere between 3,500 and 4,000 prints of A4 paper. So you hopefully only need to buy 1 or 2 a year, compared to colour printing, which can cost £300 to £400 just to replace the colours for a single print run. You've also got to look at what your infrastructure is doing. In most cases, most charities will already have broadband, and they'll also have people using that broadband. Staff will be using it. What you don't want is to simply link these public devices onto the same network that your staff are using. A public device will be more prone to get viruses. People will use USB drives, which is a pretty much sure way of bringing viruses in. And if the virus gets on the public network, you don't want it infecting the staff network. So there has to be some infrastructure to make sure that the two networks are separated. You also want to look at the Wi-Fi. Do you have enough coverage? Is the coverage good enough around the building? That goes back to looking at what's called a unified network. All the things we found interesting, for example, is if you have, say, bought 6 laptops, when they're not in use, where are you going to store them? What we found in a lot of the cases is they normally get put in the general office, and it may be 2 or 3 weeks before someone realizes one's gone missing because they're just sort of placed on a desk in the office. And then when people do want to use them, the batteries are flat because they didn't power them down to just close the lid on them. So we always suggest that you maybe buy a lockable cabinet. And that way you can make sure that if you have 8 laptops, it's an 8-bay lockable cabinet. There is a place for each laptop, and when it's not in use, it can be charged ready for the next day. I would also suggest that you buy extra power supplies for the laptops. Even if you charge a laptop overnight, the battery would probably last between maybe 3 to 5 hours. And if you're using them all day, you'll find that the battery's running out. And what happens is people then pull the charger out of the locker, the charging locker, use it and never put it back. So simply purchasing extra power supplies for your laptops means you can keep a power supply in the bag, and you can keep one in the storage locker at the same time. Makes life full. And again, if you are going to be a mobile environment, buy proper laptop bags. I mean, we're an IT company, we have people bringing their laptops back in for repair and things, and the amount of times I see them in plastic bags is shocking, and they've got dings and all sorts over them. So either buy a proper laptop bag, or maybe buy a flight case. You know, when you can use the smaller flight cases where you can put 3 or 4 laptops at the same time with a power adapter and all the bits and bobs that you need. It makes it easier to transport it if you have a very small case with everything in it. Oops, sorry. Go back one. The last thing to do is, if you're using PCs, make sure you have cable management. It looks awful if you've got lots of cables dangling down the back, or if you put a breakfast bar in sort of thing to put your PCs on, there's tons of cables dangling down the front against the wall. Cable management doesn't cost that much. It could be a simple wire basket arrangement you can put under the desk, but it keeps all the cables neat. And again, the amount of times I've seen people, I saw one person who actually got his leg caught up in the cable and pulled the monitor off and damaged the monitor simply because the cable was dangling down a hole in the desk that went through where his legs were. So again, think about cable management when you're designing these things. Technical time. Okay, this is one thing which you've got to get right. Buying a PC or a laptop or even a tablet means, you know, it might cost £300, but that means someone's got to set it up and can configure it. Someone's got to create the accounts that users are going to log into. Someone's got to make sure it's linked to the broadband properly, set up the printers properly, install the antivirus, install the Office, and things like that. In MICT, we go further than that. We create what's called multiple logins. So we have 4 logins. If I start from the bottom upwards, we have a backup, which we have access to, just in case you mess up or change passwords by mistake. We have a backdoor, we can get into it. There is an admin account, and that is for the organization themselves to do basic tasks like updates, antivirus checks, install extra software they might want. We then have a standard user account we create, which is just someone logs in and goes, there's Office, there's Windows, you can write your CV on that. And it gives them just a basic full access to the machine, but it doesn't allow them to make any changes. They can't change the wallpaper, they can't mess around with the icons, they can't install software. It locks them right down. And then beyond that, we have a thing called kiosk mode. Now, kiosk mode is one of the best ones you can have, because when you log in as kiosk mode, it just says there is a browser, nothing else. All they see is Google browser. And anything they do in that browser, any passwords they put in, any information they put in that browser, as soon as they close the browser, it's forgotten, and a new browser comes up afresh. So if you want people who are just surfing the web, just looking for information, the best mode is to have what's called kiosk mode. That allows them to put whatever they can do with that information. They can check their emails, they can go online, do banking, whatever they want. And as soon as that browser is closed, everything is forgotten. No one can see what they've done. So again, all this time to make sure, for example, you've got a web content filter, your infrastructure is right, your Wi-Fi is being correctly configured, the laptops and the tablets and the PCs have all been set up. You need to figure this time in, because there will be a cost to it. So again, talk to somebody who has the skill set to be able to give you a quote for that, because you'll need to figure that in as well. So there's a quick budgeting here. Some of the figures, as I said, from when I did this presentation the first time round, have changed slightly, but you're looking round about those sort of prices. So if we wish down it, we've got an update to a broadband line for an 18-month contract, round about £648. A new router with this web content filter for protection is, well, it's normally around about £280 now, so 320 is a bit OTT. But things like if you're having a mobile environment where you want to go out from building to provide laptop access, again, that's £640 just for the device, and about £504 for a 12-month SIM contract. You might be looking at additional network cabling switches to be able to split the network. So you have your staff network and you have your public network. So again, you've got those costs involved. A unified Wi-Fi solution, which is a business solution. Now, one of the reasons, most probably you already have Wi-Fi in your environment, and you might even have what's called a guest Wi-Fi. And you will put posters around the building that says, if you want to log into our Wi-Fi, here's the safe guest and the password. Well, it might be nice to say, well, look, you can connect to our guest Wi-Fi, but when you do, there's a landing page there which has your logo on and says, please give us your information, or please provide us your email address, or please agree to our terms and conditions of using the Wi-Fi. Now, a proper business solution will give you that flexibility rather than simply saying, yeah, here's a guest, and then you log on. The other problem you'll find with the standard guest environment is if I log into your guest environment with my laptop, for example, I have enough technical software on that I will see everybody else and whatever device they are using who are also logged into the guest Wi-Fi. And if I wasn't as honest as I am, I could be able to break into those devices and manipulate them. So a business Wi-Fi with a guest setting makes sure everybody has a separate connection to your broadband. So when I log into guest, you can't see my device, I can't see your device. And it's very important with all the cybercrime going on that you provide that sort of functionality where it isn't just a guest network, it's a situation where everybody has a separate network and they can't see each other. So they do cost quite a bit of money, but they give you a lot more benefits of how you control them. You can get stats of them. You can say, how many people connected to my Wi-Fi today? How many people accessed the internet today? And you can put all those stats up and they'll be good just for your own stats because, you know, people that once they connect to the device once, it doesn't need the password again, it remembers it. So you might never know how many people are actually connecting and using your broadband at any point in time. It's sometimes useful to have those stats. Going down, you've got the laptop costs, you've got the PC, keyboards, tablets, purchasing a black and white printer, antivirus, technical time. You can see how it all suddenly builds up. So you need to figure these prices in. Now, some of these are flexible depending on what you're doing. But again, it's important to look at the whole picture, not just buying a set of PCs or a set of laptops. There's a lot more around it. They're most probably going to be the cheapest bit when you look at the whole project and going through and covering all the bases that you need to cover. Right. Other tips just going through, as I said, go for a brand name, a major brand name. Sony, Lenovo, HP, Dell, simply because they're the business devices, and if someone broke a keyboard on a laptop or accidentally broke the screen, you can get spare parts and they're pretty cheap to replace them. If you go for the lower end, the Azuses, the Acers, and things like that, you cannot get replacement parts for them. And you can, but they're a nightmare and they do cost quite a lot. So stick with the major brand names when you buy equipment. When you're buying equipment, again, HP, i5 you're looking for. This number here should be, I would say these days, 9, 10, 11, possibly 12 is a good range to go for. And unfortunately, I put Windows 10 Pro, it's no longer, it should be Windows 11, only because Windows 10 is coming to end of life next year. And you don't want to be in an environment where you have a whole load of PCs which simply cannot be used because you can't protect them. 365. 365 does do a thing called not-for-profit, which is a really good for your own company. So if you are a charity and you are using PCs within the charity, you really should be on this 365 not-for-profit. If you want more information about it, I'm quite happy to talk about it. You can drop me an email and I can tell you it's an amazing environment to be in. It does everything you want to do, and literally it's 2 bob of conker. They give you so much freebies to get to it. However, it doesn't work in public computers. You want to make sure you're using on-premise software and you're using effectively kiosk mode. So we can lock it right down. These are a couple of things that Stuart's written on my list. Cable is better than Wi-Fi, but you've got to make sure the key thing about between Wi-Fi and cabling and the infrastructure is you want to make sure it is separate to what you are doing. So, for example, in MICT, we have 3 SIDs. Now, SIDs are what you see when you connect to a Wi-Fi, the name of the Wi-Fi you're connecting to. So we have MICT, staff, and the staff connected to it. We have guest, and that allows a guest, someone to come into the company, connect to our Wi-Fi, and use it in full protection. But we also then have MICT Don't Trust, and that's when we bring PCs in from customer sites, which we think might have viruses and so on. So we can have multiple SIDs. And again, with any Wi-Fi solution you should be installing, you should have at least 3 SIDs. You should have 1 for the staff, 1 for the public access you are providing, and then have 1 for guests. And that way you can load balance them with a thing called quality of service. So you can say staff will always have the biggest slice of the broadband, then the public will, then the guests will. And if staff aren't using it, that slice you give it across to the other 2. But there's a pecking order of who can get the most broadband. What you don't want is staff struggling to get onto Wi-Fi, or they're trying to do, in this situation, a video conference, and somebody is in your IT suite watching a YouTube video and eating all the broadband. So it's important that you get the right infrastructure in place to make sure, you know, it is spread evenly across. We talk about those. There is a thing you might have heard, it's called the Charity Digital Exchange Program. Now, this is a very good solution. It's been going for about 20 years now. And a lot of the major software manufacturers have signed up to it. You can buy cheap antivirus, you can buy Adobe products, you can buy a whole range of different software products through it. And I strongly recommend that if you're not signed up to it, please sign up to it. The biggest contributor used to be Microsoft. But as I said, Microsoft's trying to pull out of this, and they're trying to do their own not-for-profit thing and push to 365. So their prices aren't as good as they used to be. To give you an idea, when this program first started, you could buy a full copy of Office for £4. Now Microsoft charge £98, which is pretty much the same price you could buy Office retail, which is unfortunate because they're trying to push this online side of 365. But they do also have a lot of other providers, and you can get an awful lot of good software on that. And sometimes hardware manufacturers also put on the renewed PCs or renewed laptops. Sometimes you get those deals coming up. But I wouldn't apply for those for this, because by the time you get the money in your account and when you actually submitted the bid, those deals might have gone past. So do be careful on that. But it's a good thing to go and look at and have a look at by all means. Going back to this cyber securities, it's very difficult to protect a public computer. Normally what I would say to people is, I would say, for example, okay, if they are just surfing the internet, they should be in the kiosk mode. But then people will say, well, they want to write a CV, they want to edit a document, they have a file that the doctor sent to them, or something they've got to fill in, to which they will then log in a standard mode so they can have access to Word and Excel and so on. The problem happens is, when they have created this document, where do they save it? Because if they save it to the desktop of the PC, that means the next person who logs in as that user will see it, and they could actually delete it, they can change it, they can take a copy of it, so it's not secure. So what normally happens is they give the person a USB or allow people to bring USB drives in. which, as you don't know where they've come from or where they've been, they're the easiest way to bring a serious virus into your organization. That's why it's important to make sure your staff machines are separate to these public ones, because the public will get infected. The best way I normally tell people is, if people are creating documents or editing documents or want to create a CV and things on the PC, which is what they're there for, get them to sign up to either Google Drive or OneDrive, and get them used to saving it to the cloud where it's then backed up and so on and so forth. As an IT organization, we must get about 3 USB devices a week, so a month in, saying it's broken, can you fix it? All my data's on it, because it's never backed up. If you get people into the habit of saving things to a Dropbox or to a Google OneDrive, then at least it's backed up and secure. So if they do actually delete it, you can recover it. But USB drives still seem to be the main way of the public saving data, and it's also the main way that viruses will come in. So making sure that these PCs are the most resilient against these sort of things, again, is important. There's also other things. I mean, we've all had the spam emails where it says, you know, such and such has happened. Please click on this link to verify your identity in some way. Or here's a deal of the day, please click on this link. And it's normally going to download a virus in the background and infect your PC. One of the things, the web content filter, which we're recommending you have, it will automatically scan for those sort of emails and block them. Or if it's a link you're trying to click on by normal web browsing and it deems it as an insecure link, it will also block that. So a web content filter isn't just there to block general sites like adult sites and gambling sites. It also adds to cybersecurity. It's also important the antivirus you get is what's called centrally controlled, not a one-off. A lot of antivirus, you install it on your PC, and then something happens, a box pulls up and says, I have found such and such, it's a threat, what should I do? And in most cases, people go, I haven't got a clue. So they just press the cancel button. And nobody knows there is now a threat on that PC. And the next person that uses it, the antivirus might say, I'm not going to tell you because I told you the last person there was a threat. So having a centrally controlled antivirus means someone like MICT and things, it will ping up on our system even before the user is notified, and we can be combating that and contacting the organization to say, hey, PC such and such has reported a problem. Can we remote into it and can we fix it for you? So again, it's not just a question of going out and buying good antivirus. It needs to be what's called centrally controlled, so someone is monitoring it. Otherwise, the PCs could be every single day popping up windows saying, I found a threat, this is serious. What are you going to do about it? And nothing gets done. But you've got to take this cybersecurity and cyber attacks very seriously, especially if you haven't split your networks, because the worst thing that can happen is your staff networks go down, and then the organization is in serious storm trying to fix everything. You also have some legal responsibilities, which is a bit crazy. If, for example, you have Wi-Fi, if you said, here is our Wi-Fi, you can connect to it and there is no password, then you're not legally responsible for what they do on that Wi-Fi, which is crazy. But if you do put a password, which is a recommended thing that the government say you should do, then you are technically legally responsible for what they are accessing. There was a really interesting case last year where a guy was using went to a coffee house, logged into their Wi-Fi and had a gambling problem. And he built up some serious debts, and they tried to go after him to recoup the money and found out he had none. So what they did was they went after the coffee house to recoup the debts because they enabled the coffee house provided Wi-Fi and therefore to enable him to build up his gambling debts. And they actually won. and the coffee house had to pay them the money because they allowed him, as a known gambling addict, to build up those debts. So you've got to be careful. So one of the things you must have is terms and conditions on your Wi-Fi usage, or if you're using a desktop PC, there has to be terms and conditions. Now, it could be a poster listing your terms and conditions. It could simply be, if you're connecting to your Wi-Fi or using our public computers, ask a staff member for our terms and conditions. But you must have them. If you don't, you can be actually held liable. If you want sets of terms and conditions, you can either contact me and I can give you some, or you can simply go to someone like McDonald's or Starbucks website and look at their Wi-Fi usage terms and conditions and just modify them to what you need. But you must have terms and conditions for people. Now, in a perfect world, some of our organisations will have a sign-in book. So people, before they can use the Wi-Fi or use a desktop PC, they will sign in it and they agree to the terms and conditions. Others are open house and they have posters around the building saying these are our terms and conditions, but you must have them. The last one, which is the most important, if you're using mobile, so you're transporting laptops and things around different buildings in your vehicle, you must have business insurance to transfer that information. Otherwise, it is not covered by your insurance. And if a policeman stops you and says, "What are you doing?" and you say, "Oh, I'm just taking these laptops down the road to that centre so I can have a mobile system," and he says you don't have business insurance, you then have no insurance and you'll be done for no insurance. So it's very, very important that you check your vehicle insurance to make sure that you have the right to do that work travelling between sites. Unfortunately, one of our other charities, one of their members got stung with that one, and they got done for having no insurance because they were just literally taking some laptops down to another centre they used because they were short on some. So do be careful on that one. It can catch a lot of people out. Right, sorry about my waffle. Is there any questions? It's all been very quiet. And it still is very quiet.
Everyone's still away? No offense.
Yeah, no, that was really insightful. Thank you, Tim. Sorry, my camera's not working. I have noted your email address, so we'll no doubt be in touch, but thank you very much.
I'm more than happy to come out and talk to anybody and see what you're trying to achieve. It's not complicated if you know what you're looking for. And we normally end up writing a report for you stating the whole situation and ideas of costs and things like that. We can do that for you. I'm very more than happy to help you answer those. But it can seem overwhelming. Now you've just watched the presentation of that and gone, "Oh, I thought it was just buying 5 laptops."
It's important to know though, isn't it? Because if you buy 5 laptops, they'll just be knackered before you know it. Jack or Pat, will you stop the recording now, please?